When the Browns say they're taking their time, it's not about indecision. It's a stress test. Andrew Berry's message makes one thing brutally clear. Any coach walking into Cleveland will be judged first on how they talk about SHEDEUR Sanders. Behind closed doors, that's the filter. The interviews aren't just about schemes or leadership style. They're about whether a candidate is willing to subordinate ego, ambition, and legacy to the quarterback's growth. And Berry's tone suggests he's ready to pass on big names if they don't align. If you're into the real story and all the messy twists they don't show on highlight reels, go ahead and subscribe. And if you're sticking around to see how this Browns QB chaos plays out, you should definitely be subscribed. In essence, the Browns are building a coaching profile around Sanders, not the other way around. This level of clarity is new for Cleveland. Berry isn't just hiring a coach. He's drafting a partner, one who shares his belief that quarterback development isn't just part of the plan. It is the plan. The system they're building is designed to shield Sanders from the turbulence that's derailed previous prospects. From roster decisions to locker room culture, everything now flows from a central premise. SHEDEUR Sanders is a franchise, and his growth is the franchise's success. The patience, the scrutiny, the infrastructure, it all points to a new era, one built to last. Andrew Berry didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. The message landed because of how measured it was. This was a rant, and it wasn't a soundbite built for headlines. It was a general manager calmly drawing a line and letting everyone know exactly where the Cleveland Browns are headed. His words made one thing unmistakably clear. The future of this organization is tied directly to SHEDEUR Sanders, and there will be no compromises on that point. Berry spoke with precision. He talked about vision, alignment, and patience. Those aren't words that Browns fans are used to hearing together, especially not from the front office. For years, the franchise moved in reaction mode. A bad stretch of games led to panic. A coaching misalignment led to resets. Quarterbacks came and went. But this time, Berry framed the situation differently. He wasn't looking for quick fixes. He wasn't selling hope. He was outlining requirements. And those requirements were aimed squarely at the next head coach. Berry made it clear that this hire would not be about reputation, speed, or optics. It would be about whether that coach could commit fully to developing Sanders. Not partially, not conditionally. Fully. This is where the shift becomes impossible to ignore. The Browns are no longer pretending they can build everything at once. They are choosing a center point and constructing everything around it. That center point is SHEDEUR Sanders. Berry acknowledged, without dramatics, that instability has been a franchise's biggest enemy. Coaching turnover, philosophical changes, systems that never matched the personnel. All of it led to wasted seasons and stalled development. This time, the plan is different. Berry emphasized discipline over urgency. He spoke about taking the time needed to find the right coach, even if that process stretches longer than fans want. That patience is intentional. It's rooted in the belief that rushing into another misaligned hire would only repeat the same cycle the Browns are trying to escape. There was also a strong sense of accountability in his tone. This wasn't about blaming past coaches or players. It was about acknowledging that the organization itself has to provide a stable structure. Berry positioned the front office, ownership, and coaching staff as partners in Sanders' development. No silos. No disconnects. One direction. When Berry talks about Sanders, he doesn't talk about him like a project that needs fixing. He talks about him like a quarterback who has already shown the traits the organization values most. Leadership, composure, resilience. Those qualities are why the Browns are willing to commit to him publicly and structurally. Sanders has been under pressure from the moment he stepped into the spotlight. Expectations came fast. Criticism followed just as quickly. Berry acknowledged that reality and framed it as part of the evaluation. How a quarterback responds to adversity matters just as much as physical ability. According to Berry, Sanders has responded the right way. That belief isn't abstract. It's tied to real moments, real games, and real pressure. Sanders has shown the ability to remain steady when things aren't going perfectly. That steadiness is what the Browns want to protect and build on. And protecting it means ensuring the next head coach is aligned with that goal from day one. Barry's comments carried an unmistakable warning. Any coach coming into Cleveland with their own rigid system or ego-driven approach will not fit. Flexibility isn't optional. Partnership isn't optional. The coach must be willing to adapt to Sanders, not force Sanders into something that doesn't serve his development. This is where the word sabotage starts to feel relevant, even if Barry never used it outright. The implication was clear. Misalignment at the coaching level can derail a quarterback before he ever gets a fair chance. The Browns are not willing to let that happen again. Barry stressed that leadership during adversity is non-negotiable. When things go wrong, the coach must steady the situation, not amplify the chaos. He also emphasized communication. The coach must be transparent, collaborative, and accountable. That applies to how they work with Sanders and how they operate within the broader organization. Barry's vision leaves very little room for ambiguity. You're either on board with building around Sanders, or you're not the guy. From Sanders' perspective, the support matters. Public backing from the general manager isn't just symbolic. It reinforces confidence. It sends a message to the locker room and to the league that this quarterback has organizational trust. Barry's comments serve as psychological reinforcement for a young player navigating one of the most demanding positions in sports. Sanders has spoken openly about handling pressure and expectations. That aligns with Barry's emphasis on mental toughness. The Browns aren't just evaluating arm strength or athleticism. They're evaluating how a quarterback leads when things get uncomfortable. Sanders' ability to stay composed has become a central part of the organization's evaluation. This mutual alignment is intentional. The Browns are making it clear that Sanders isn't being asked to carry the franchise alone. He's being given a structure designed to support his growth. That distinction matters, especially for a quarterback early in his career. What stands out most about this moment is the clarity. For once, the Browns are not hedging. They are not leaving doors open from multiple directions. Barry laid out a single path forward and committed to it. That path involves patience, infrastructure, and long-term thinking. The organization is prioritizing substance over speed. Barry acknowledged that the right coach might take weeks to identify. That patience is framed as a strength, not a weakness. In a league where impatience often leads to repeated mistakes, the Browns are choosing to slow down. This approach also signals a cultural reset. Past failures are being recognized without being dwelled on. The lesson has been learned. Talent alone isn't enough. Without alignment and support, even the most promising quarterback can stall. The Browns are attempting to correct that at the root level. The Bengals game became a reference point for a reason. It wasn't just about the outcome. It was about how Sanders handled the moment. Barry pointed to that game as an example of leadership under pressure. Sanders remained composed, communicated effectively, and stayed engaged despite the intensity of the situation. Those moments matter in evaluations. They reveal how a quarterback processes adversity in real time. Barry highlighted that because it reinforces why the organization believes in Sanders. It also underscores why the next coach must be able to nurture those traits instead of undermining them. Games like that expose flaws in infrastructure just as much as they showcase player traits. The Browns want a coach who can learn from those moments, adjust, and support Sanders through them. Not one who reacts emotionally or abandons a plan at the first sign of trouble. Barry's interview wasn't about hype. It was about standards. He laid out what leadership should look like during a rebuild and made it clear that shortcuts are no longer acceptable. Every decision moving forward will be evaluated based on whether it helps or harms Sanders' development. That level of transparency is rare for a general manager. Barry didn't hide behind vague language. He stated openly that alignment with a quarterback is the foundation of the next phase. That sends a message to potential coaches, players, and fans alike. This is also about shared responsibility. Barry emphasized that success or failure won't fall solely on Sanders. The organization is taking ownership of the environment it creates. That includes coaching, roster construction, and cultural expectations. Sanders' public presence reflects the same themes Barry emphasized: composure, accountability, focus. He hasn't framed himself as a savior. He's framed himself as a leader willing to grow. That alignment between player and front office is intentional and rare. The Browns are betting that this partnership can finally break the cycle of dysfunction. Sanders is being positioned as a long-term answer, not a temporary solution. That comes with pressure, but it also comes with clarity. Barry's public backing gives Sanders room to develop without constantly looking over his shoulder. That stability is exactly what the Browns have lacked in the past. This time, they are actively trying to protect it. At its core, this moment represents a philosophical reset. The Browns are choosing patience over panic, alignment over convenience, development over short-term fixes. Andrew Barry's message was calm, but it carried weight. Everything now runs through SHEDEUR Sanders. The next head coach will either embrace that responsibility or be eliminated from consideration. There's no middle ground. If this approach works, it could redefine how the Browns operate for years to come. And if it fails, it won't be because the vision was unclear. For the first time in a long time, Cleveland knows exactly who it's building around and exactly what it's looking for. If you found this breakdown useful, make sure to like the video, share it with other Browns fans, leave your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe for more in-depth coverage on everything happening around the league. There's a reason Andrew Barry's interview set off a ripple through the league. This was a vague GM update or a puff piece about evaluating all options. This was a declaration. It was clear, intentional, and more direct than most front office executives ever dare to be publicly. He wasn't just signaling support for a player. He was redrawing the lines of power inside the Browns organization. Barry didn't say SHEDEUR Sanders runs the team. What he said, between the lines, is that if you want to run the team, you better understand that it runs through Sanders now. That distinction matters. Because this isn't about handing over the keys to a rookie. It's about acknowledging that the future of the franchise is tied to his development, and anyone not aligned with that has no place in the building. This kind of clarity is rare, especially from a GM who knows every word will be dissected, but Barry seemed unfazed by that. In fact, he seemed to welcome it. He wants everyone to understand. The era of vague direction in Cleveland is over. SHEDEUR Sanders hasn't had to say much. The message around him has spoken volumes. But in his limited public comments, he's shown exactly why the Browns are taking this approach. There's no panic in how he communicates. No overpromising. Just a calm understanding of the expectations he now carries. Sanders has been measured when asked about the coaching search. He's expressed trust in the process and has focused on his own development. That maturity aligns perfectly with Barry's messaging. The Browns don't want someone reactive. They want someone who's steady. Someone who can handle the weight of being the guy without becoming overwhelmed by it. That demeanor, quiet confidence under pressure, is what sets Sanders apart early. And now, it's what the entire franchise is being built around. Not hype, not flash, poise. What's most striking about this new era in Cleveland is how starkly it contrasts with the team's past. The Browns have always been a franchise chasing identity. Quarterbacks came and went. Coaches cycled through. Philosophies change yearly. And somewhere in the chaos, players were left without real support. Now, they're starting from one point, SHEDEUR Sanders, and reverse engineering the rest of the organization from there. Coaching, culture, communication, all of it is being designed to support that one pillar. This isn't a quarterback being plugged into someone else's vision. This is a quarterback whose presence is shaping the vision. Barry knows what the Browns were. That's why he's so determined to make sure they don't fall into those traps again. Every past mistake is now a reference point for what not to repeat. In his interviews, Sanders has talked about growth more than results. He's acknowledged areas he needs to improve. He's been candid about the transition into the NFL. And that self-awareness has only solidified the belief that he's the right foundation. Barry's public commitment means Sanders no longer has to fight for organizational trust. It's already been given. That's a powerful shift. For a young quarterback, the freedom to learn without constantly defending your role is rare. And for a franchise like the Browns, it's revolutionary. This is why the interview process for the new head coach is so critical. Sanders doesn't need someone to fix him. He needs someone to build with him. A coach who listens, adapts, and understands that development is not about forcing a system, but about unlocking potential. The Bengals game keeps coming up for a reason. It wasn't a breakout performance. And it didn't end in some dramatic win, but it revealed something the front office has been searching for in a quarterback: steadiness. When the pocket collapsed, Sanders didn't flinch. When the scoreboard didn't favor Browns, he didn't panic. He kept working. He kept communicating. Barry referenced that game as proof of concept. That's what composure under fire looks like. And that's what the next coach needs to know how to nurture, not replace. It also exposed the kinds of coaching deficiencies that have hurt the Browns in the past. Mismatched play calling, poor adjustments, no clarity in leadership. Those are the issues Barry is trying to eliminate in this reset. The Bengals game wasn't just a test for Sanders. It was a test for the entire structure around him, and it revealed where the cracks still are. Sanders' press conference after that game was short, but telling. He didn't point fingers. He didn't deflect blame. He talked about execution, patience, and accountability. That kind of mentality is exactly what Barry referenced when he said leadership in adversity is non-negotiable. It's one thing for a young quarterback to show flashes on the field. It's another for him to maintain composure off it when things haven't gone well. That duality, steady play and steady words, is what makes Sanders unique. The Browns aren't building around his potential. They're building around his presence. That's a distinction Barry has made clear in every interview. Sanders isn't being protected because he's fragile. He's being invested in because he's durable. Emotionally, mentally, structurally. Barry also drew a clear line in the sand when discussing how coaching candidates will be evaluated. This is not about resumes. It's about fit. And fit, in this case, means one thing: alignment with Sanders' development. A candidate could have a Super Bowl ring and a decade of experience, but if they don't understand that Sanders is the center of the operation, they're out. That level of commitment is rare. Most GMs hedge. They talk about competition. They avoid absolutes. Barry didn't do that. He said the next coach has to partner with Sanders, not control him. That language matters. It suggests that Cleveland isn't just hiring a strategist. They're hiring a collaborator. He also made it clear that mistakes of the past won't be repeated. No more system-first hires. No more misaligned staffs. No more coaches who think they're bigger than the team. This time, the hire will reflect the values Barry has set: humility, partnership, and player development. This all ties back to culture. For decades, the Browns have struggled to build one. Coaches came in with their own ideas. GMs tried to course correct. Owners pressed for results. And in the middle of it all, players were stuck reacting to chaos around them. Now, the culture is being built around one organizing principle: growth. Not just for Sanders, but for everyone. Coaches, staff, front office, all of them are expected to contribute to that growth. That means clear communication, share responsibility, and align priorities. Barry has stopped talking about wins and losses as the only barometer. He's talking about process, development, stability. That might not excite everyone in the short term, but it's the only way to build something that lasts. That shift is evident in how Sanders has talked about expectations. He's not promising a playoff run or throwing out catchphrases. He's focused on learning the playbook, understanding defenses, and working with teammates. That workmanlike approach is exactly what Barry wants to protect. By giving Sanders a space to grow, the Browns are avoiding the trap that has derailed so many quarterbacks: rushing development, creating pressure, blaming players for systemic issues. Barry's comments show a deep understanding of how those patterns play out and how to stop them. Sanders isn't being anointed. He's being supported. There's a difference. One puts pressure on the player. The other puts responsibility on the team around him. That's what Barry is changing. If there's one thing that defines Barry's tone, it's conviction. This isn't a guy trying to save his job with a flashy hire or a desperate trade. This is a general manager who believes in the path he's set and is willing to be patient enough to see it through. He knows that fans are tired. He knows that patience doesn't always sell. But he also knows that what's been done in the past hasn't worked. And rather than chase another short-term jolt, he's building something deeper, something that might take time, but that actually has a chance to last. That belief runs through every decision he's making, from the head coach to the offensive system to the messaging around Sanders. It's all connected. It's all part of a single, unified plan. And that's what sets this moment apart from anything the Browns have done in years. This is the crossroads moment that so many teams talk about, but rarely handle the right way. The Browns have said the right things before about culture, about vision, about development. But this time, the difference is in the execution. There's alignment from top to bottom. There's no tug of war between departments. There's no illusion that a splashy hire or a big trade can shortcut the work. Every move now revolves around one core question. Does this help SHEDEUR Sanders succeed long-term? If the answer is no, it doesn't happen. That level of clarity is something the franchise has never consistently had. Not with past quarterbacks. Not with past regimes. This time, it feels different because the words are being backed by a deliberate, consistent process. And while fans are used to expecting chaos from Cleveland, they're now watching something that feels like control. Not just control for the sake of optics, but actual restraint. That's what Barry is modeling. That's what this franchise is leaning into. Sanders has responded the only way he knows how, by staying even-keeled. He's not basking in the spotlight or lobbying for input. He's keeping his focus on preparation. And that's part of why the Browns trust him as a leader. He's not just a quarterback. He's a tone setter. The Browns have made it clear that they're building around his mindset as much as his skill set. His ability to stay calm, stay coachable, and stay committed through uncertainty is exactly the foundation a young team needs. And it gives the next head coach a clear advantage, walking into a locker room that already has a quarterback who sets the right example. That kind of leadership is contagious. It changes how veterans buy in. It shifts how younger players learn. It's why Barry has refused to gamble on any coach who doesn't fully understand what Sanders represents, not just as a player, but as a presence. Barry's vision isn't flashy, but it is firm. He isn't chasing headlines. He's building a standard, one that demands patience, intentionality, and alignment. The Browns aren't just drafting talent and hoping it works. They're crafting an environment where that talent has every chance to develop without distraction or dysfunction. He knows the scrutiny that comes with this role. He knows the urgency fans feel. But he's betting on something bigger than impulse. He's betting on structure. And so far, that structure is holding. The Browns aren't racing anyone. They're building their own pace, their own process, and their own future around a quarterback they believe in and a culture they're finally ready to defend. Sanders doesn't have to prove his worth with words anymore. The Browns have already made that call. What comes next is about action, about who they bring in as head coach, about how that coach complements the path already laid out, and about whether Cleveland, at long last, can break the cycle and become what they've always claimed they could be. If you're here for this rebuild and want to see where it goes, hit the like button. Share this with someone still doubting Cleveland's direction. Drop your predictions in the comments and subscribe so you don't miss what happens next.